Howdy folks, my name is Darren Ray Fonso and I'm talking about injured workers in the state of Washington and across America today. Today's topic is how mental health, we have injured workers, their mental health is being harmed, some of them even driven to suicide across this nation, and how people aren't wanting to address that situation, even our mental health providers. Here in my state of Washington, I attend a clinic called CMAR Mental Health Services. They've been my mental health providers off and on for about 4 years, and definitely for the last 2 years straight. I have been in some intensive IOP outpatient treatment where they had providers come to my home even like twice a week to check on me over almost a 2 year period. And so there in my state, we had also a story come out about, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Seattle Times or which paper it was, but it told us about how 400 injured Washington State farm workers were saying that the Washington State L&I process was harming them more than it was helping them. We also had a story come out also in 2015, the federal government, Bernie Sanders and Patty Murray, 10 other U.S. senators all wrote a letter to the Departments of Labor and OSHA, all come out and told us Washington State was one of 33 states failing injured workers. Well, what I want to know as an injured worker who's been harmed by this, and CMAR helped me to fight my battle against injured workers, or at least some of their therapists did, and navigate the complexities of it. And help me to get the truth that was the harm done to me to a state work comp judge, and then also get that truth told to a federal SSDI judge, who both, the SSDI judge said that the state work comp system harmed me and harmed my mental health. And so I'm grateful to CMAR Mental Health Services for that, and their therapists that helped me that, and their doctors that helped through that process and that part of it. Yet, now when it comes time during Latino Legislative Day in 2019 here a while back, we have a Claudia Alegre who runs the behavioral health apparently for CMAR in some way, and she was at Latino Legislative Day to speak about mental health services and about how to contact your lawmakers. And also at that same day, the Latino Civic Alliance was inviting a work comp attorney to talk about how workers' comp affects Latinos in Washington State. Well, I contacted that attorney prior to this event, and I also contacted Claudia Alger and State Representative Ortiz-self, and told them about the 400 injured farm workers and how they needed help. And nonetheless, they had this big meeting on Latino Legislative Day, and they were going to have this work comp attorney come and tell everybody, well, gee, Latinos don't have to fear reporting their injuries in Washington State because we take care of them, we don't go turn them in and shit. And that is true. But I called and told that work comp lawyer beforehand if he couldn't tell the truth about how 400 injured farm workers are saying they fear reporting their injuries because nobody's helping them, not because somebody's going to turn them in, but because they're not being helped like the rest of us injured workers on the low-line injured workers on the non-catastrophic OJIs that we're all being cheated out of intently and put through a work comp maze if we try and fight it that destroys men's mental health in the process. And so when CMAR can help me tell the truth to a state work comp judge and the truth to a federal SSDI judge, yet when I want them to tell the truth to the state's lawmakers and to Senator Ortiz-self and Lieutenant Governor Habib was also there that day, and I've also told him about the 400 injured farm workers. So what I'm starting to feel here is even my own mental health care team, Senator Ortiz-self, Lieutenant Governor Habib, and Latino Civic Alliance all seem to conspire together to try and get a work comp attorney to speak on Latino legislative Day to say Latinos don't fear reporting your on-the-job injuries. You're safe here in Washington State. When the truth is that every injured worker in the state of Washington has to fear reporting their on-the-job injury because they have to fear being put through work comp hell intently because nobody wants to provide them the Band-Aid. And they put you through hell to get the Band-Aid instead of fucking honoring our grand bargain out the gate to start with. So as we will give up on our grand bargain, our health care being used as a tool and our doctors being used as tools and shields. Yet CMAR healthcare centers And mental health, my mental health care providers and my health care providers don't seem to want to get on us on Latino Legislative Day with Ortiz-self. See, what this whole thing to me, and in my conspiracy theory mind, it goes down the road at this time, if you want to call it that, is why do I have my healthcare team and all these people, Representative Ortiz-self, and the Lieutenant Governor, and the Latino Civic Alliance, all conspiring, basically, to spin the narrative against the fact that we have 400 injured farm workers saying that they're not being helped. Because that's what that whole day seemed to be geared towards. And let's talk to your lawmakers. Yet they don't want to get Darren Fonso's voice, an injured worker who's been in their care for over 2 fucking years, and the harm done to him and his family, and the fact that his father-in-law, who was Latino, was also injured on the job and worked by the state, Walmart, and Sedgwick to death, and after reporting his on-the-job injury. And plus the 400 injured farm workers. So it's egregious to me at this time that I have my healthcare providers, my state representatives, and yeah, basically the state representatives, and Latino Civic Alliance, basically the business representatives, I guess, for the community, not wanting to step up and represent and tell us the truth about the 400 injured farm workers that the Seattle Times told us about. I feel like all of them were conspiring to spin the narrative here in the state of Washington that no, we're not harming injured workers. We're trying to take care of them, and you as a Latino shouldn't fear to report. The truth is, you should fear to report. And it doesn't matter if you're Latino or what walk of life you come from. Work comp is an equal opportunity oppressor, especially for low-line injured workers making probably under $35,000 a year, with somebody standing in front of them making $150,000 a year saying you don't smell right to us. And no, we're not going to do an MRI because that would prove the facts and that would show evidence of harm done. It would be like pictures of the fucking scene of the crime, but we no longer even want to do MRIs. We want to go, well, that smells like a sprain to me, even though we know it's a herniated disc. And we're watering down other people's injuries as well, and we're not giving people the carpal tunnel help for the surgeries when they need those. They're being delayed, denied, defended against, starved, and settled for peanuts. It's egregious at this point when my mental health team, CMAR, has a duty to me as a patient to report harm done to me to the state and to the federal government and to our federal lawmakers and to the public. If human beings are being harmed instead of helped, when injured workers are not getting their Band-Aid, but instead being driven mentally insane, instead of just profiting off at CMAR for 2 years, you ought to be telling our lawmakers when you have their ears and the podium to speak up and have your voices heard, as you tell me, Claudia D'Alegre, who runs behavioral health for CMAR, that you're trying to get our voices heard and show us how to get our voices heard and CMAR's patients' voices heard by our lawmakers, yet you intently seem to conspire. I'm taking deep breaths, and I'm not angry. But I am going to expose this harm to humans and a group of Democrats in my community, and I've been a Democrat for 30 years, who seem to stand in the way and block the needed federal oversight that needs to be done and put on the table, and some honesty and some truth about how we're allowing one class to harm the other people with their pens, and then those people with pens are granted immunity from any harm they do. Yet if an injured worker gets harmed, we get criminal law imposed upon us. Not only do we get criminal law if we lie, but also if we yell or scream or give empty threats at those men with pens who are granted immunity for harming us and who will never be held to account. Even when the injured workers win on our appeals and we win our cases, those people who harmed us all along the way, intently trying to trip us up instead of help us when they're supposed to be healing us, are never held to account for the harm they do. One work comp lawyer likes to tell it like this, that we injured workers catch these doctors stealing our candy bars. They steal our candy bars, and we catch them on our appeals. The work comp judges tell them, give those workers back their candy bars, but nobody ever slaps those people on the hands for stealing the injured workers' candy bars to start with. This is a class war, and what we're finding out is that it's a war on cumulative trauma, repetitive stress type diseases. We've got a war on them, and a war on aging injured workers, where we're throwing them to the streets on sniffs and grins, putting them through a hell instead of rehabbing them, instead of accepting the injury and just going on, giving them the Band-Aid and some retraining and putting them back in somewhere in a lighter duty type position. We're kicking them to the streets, and CMAR knows this is going on. And we also know that the opiate-related deaths, we can relate 25% of the opioid-related deaths back to workers' comp. 25% of it. So that means workers' comp is adding to the opioid-related suicides in our nation by 25%. So if you're not addressing workers' comp, you really can't address the opiate war that CMAR and the whole Democratic echelon seem to have on the opiate war front. So what I'm saying is you can't address that if you don't address the fact that injured workers are being harmed and being put on the opiates and then being drug out, delayed, and denied, and not even being given surgeries that may have fixed them. This is wrong. This is not just. And I'm going to keep speaking out, and I'm going to keep CMAR as my health care providers. But as a patient, I'm going to continue to say, I feel you're failing me. You're failing the injured workers of America, and you're failing Latinos when you can't tell the truth about 400 injured farm workers screaming for your help as the day that you go down and you all pat each other around the ass and say you're Latino Legislative Alliance and the Latino Civic Alliance and Gabriel Nunez, who runs that, who I have been begging for his help for over 3 years, and from the Democrat community. This is egregious and disgusting at this point. When we have officers, firemen, and nurses across this country committing suicide over the injustice that you people can't get honest, and you're my mental health providers. No, I'm going to be talking about my mental health therapist with this. This is definitely a topic that's going to be coming up, and we're going to be talking about it. And you're either going to, I'm going to put in a form of complaint at some point through your process. I might have my therapist help me to do it, because this is egregious when my healthcare team can't get honest with our lawmakers and our community as a war is waged on not just on Latinos, but on the whole labor community who dares to report their on-the-job injuries instead of putting and cost-shifting it off to some other private insurer. This is a class war done through our health care on sniffs and gins, and the men's doing it are granted immunity for any harm they do. That's two sets of laws. One man lives under med tort and work comp laws for their crimes against humanity, while their victims get criminal law if we scream out rage, anger, or pain, or even empty threats over the injustice. This is egregious. This is why it's called oppression. And it's egregious when my healthcare team and my healthcare providers can tell the truth, like I say, to the work comp judges, to the federal SSDI judges, but when I wanted them to tell them the truth to people like Rick Larson or Representative Lillian Ortiz or Lieutenant Governor Habib, who was all there that day, it seems like all of them are more conspiring to try and spin the narrative to say, no, we've got a work comp attorney that says, don't fear reporting your injuries if you're Latino. Well, he didn't show up, did he? Because he didn't want to go and lie. This is egregious when you would try and spin and use a whole fucking Latino Legislative Day to try and basically even poke at me, the injured worker, screaming out in your community even more, because I feel like now my healthcare team was just even poking at me even more. I mean, they knew ahead of time I was begging for them to say something about the 400 injured workers prior to Legislative Latino Day. I had contacted Claudia Alger and CMAR and Lillian Ortiz-self's office. These people have known people are being harmed in our community, and they're not wanting to address it. They're in bed with the other side, and both sides, the aristocrats at the top, are robbing the grand bargain from men at the bottom, then putting our noses through a shit and a quagmire of work comp hell from sometimes 10 years in some cases. Even more. That's not right. That's not just. And like I said, then when we get to the end and we win with the facts and the objective medical facts on our side, those who were trying to hide and omit those facts throughout the process are never held to account and are free to continue harming the next guy. No, ma'am, ladies and gentlemen, this is class war being waged on us through our health care, and if CMAR cannot step up and address it, I'm going to try and do it through my therapist and do it through their legal channels, the right channels, and try to get this egregious abuse and the fact that they're not reporting patient harm to the American public, as they should be, and to our lawmakers, then this almost starts to look really, really not good. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, folks, and have a good day. And my main question here is, why is my healthcare team not, reporting patient harm when they know what's going on? And the same thing with Lillian Ortiz-self, the Lieutenant Governor. Oh, and best yet, who also was sponsoring this event that day was Washington State Federation of State Employees, of which I used to work at the University of Washington Medical Center, where I got harmed at. So my union was also at this event that day. So I've got my union, I got all my Democratic representatives, and my mental health, behavioral health, managerial people are all there to spin and tell a dishonest lie about a war on injured workers when they know people are being harmed. They know my father-in-law was worked to death. They know the hell my family had been put through, but they can't share that truth. Our healthcare is being used as a tool and a shield for one class to wage oppression upon the other, and I want it addressed. And I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm trying not to scream and yell, because my wife said, be sure not to scream and yell, Darren, and I'm not. Straight out, Seymour, I'm going through your legal process and through the correct system, and I'm going to get you to address this truth of harm to me and my healthcare. Have a good day.